There was a moment when you realized it. Not with your mind, but with something deeper. A quiet knowing that settled into your chest like winter fog. You loved someone you could never have. And that love didn't just hurt. It changed you. It cracked something open inside you that you didn't even know was closed, and now, even though time has passed, even though you've tried to move forward, you still feel it. That person still lives somewhere in your chest, in your dreams, in the songs that suddenly make you stop and remember. You thought by now you would have forgotten. You thought the pain would have faded into something manageable, something you could tuck away and ignore. But it hasn't. And maybe that's because this wasn't just about them. Maybe it was never really about them at all. If you're watching this right now, I want you to know something. You're not broken. You're not weak for still feeling this. You're not pathetic for loving someone who couldn't love you back, or who belonged to someone else, or who simply wasn't available in the way your soul needed them to be. What you experienced wasn't a mistake. It was an initiation. Carl Jung believed that some of the most profound awakenings come through the wounds we don't choose, through the loves that break us open. And if you're an empath, if you're someone who feels everything deeper than most, then this kind of love didn't just touch you. It transformed you. It forced you to face parts of yourself you had been avoiding your entire life. But here's what most people don't understand. Here's what even you might not have realized yet. That love, that impossible, painful, beautiful love, wasn't sent to destroy you. It was sent to awaken you, to show you something about yourself that you could only learn through that specific kind of heartbreak. And now, standing on the other side of it, or maybe still somewhere in the middle, you're beginning to sense that there's a reason you felt so deeply, a reason you couldn't just let go, a reason that person still haunts you in the quiet moments. Because empaths don't love casually. They don't give their hearts to just anyone. And when they do, when they love someone they can't have, it's not random. It's not coincidence. Jung called it synchronicity, the universe orchestrating experiences that force your soul to grow. So I need to ask you something, and I want you to really feel into this question. What if loving them wasn't the tragedy? What if the real tragedy would have been never loving them at all? What if that love, as painful as it was exactly what your soul needed to finally wake up? Take a breath. Let that sink in, because what I'm about to share with you might change everything you thought you understood about that love, about that person, and most importantly, about yourself. You've probably wondered why it hurt so much more for you than it seemed to hurt for them. Why you carried the weight of that connection while they seemed to move on effortlessly. Why you felt everything so intensely, while they appeared almost untouched by what you shared. And maybe you even blamed yourself. Maybe you thought there was something wrong with you for feeling too much, for caring too deeply, for loving too completely. But Jung understood something crucial about people like you. He understood that empaths don't just experience love, they experience the soul of love. They touch the archetypal realm where love exists not as a feeling, but as a force of transformation. When an empath loves someone they can't have, they're not just dealing with rejection or loss. They're dealing with something far more profound. They're confronting the mirror that person held up to their own soul. Because here's the truth that nobody tells you. That person you loved, that person you couldn't have, they weren't just themselves. They were also a projection. Jung called this the anima or animus, the inner image of the beloved that lives in your unconscious. And when you met them, when you felt that inexplicable pull, that sense of recognition, you weren't just meeting another person. You were meeting a part of yourself that had been hidden, waiting, calling out to be integrated. This is why it felt so different. This is why it felt like destiny, like fate, like something written in the stars. Because on some level, your soul recognized that this person carried qualities, energies, aspects that you needed to reclaim within yourself. Maybe they had a confidence you'd suppressed. Maybe they had a freedom you'd denied yourself. Maybe they embodied a wildness, a creativity, a depth that you'd been taught to hide. And loving them, even though you couldn't have them, forced you to feel those parts of yourself again. Forced you to remember what you'd forgotten about who you really are. But empaths make a particular mistake in these situations. They give away their power. They place all that magic, all that beauty, all that transformative energy onto the other person, and then they feel empty when that person leaves or remains unavailable. They feel like they've lost their only chance at wholeness. And this is the wound. Not the fact that the love didn't work out, but the fact that you forgot you were the source of that feeling all along. And maybe right now you're starting to see it differently. Maybe you're beginning to understand that this wasn't about them choosing you or not choosing you. This was about you learning to choose yourself. Have you ever considered that? That the entire experience was designed to bring you back to yourself? Drop a comment if this is resonating with something you've felt but couldn't name, because what comes next is going to show you exactly why this happened the way it did. There's a belief that empaths carry, often unconsciously, that makes the pain of impossible love even more devastating. It's the belief in the one, the belief that there's only one person who can truly see them, understand them, complete them. And when they meet someone who mirrors that belief back to them, someone who seems to recognize their soul in a way no one else ever has, they become convinced. This is it. This is the person. This is what I've been waiting for my entire life. And when that person becomes unavailable, when the relationship becomes impossible, it feels like the death of destiny itself. But Jung would challenge this belief. He would ask you to look deeper, because what you were actually experiencing wasn't the recognition of your one true love. It was the recognition of your own wholeness reflected back to you through another person. That intensity you felt, that sense of coming home, that feeling of finally being understood, it wasn't coming from them. It was coming from you. They simply created the conditions for you to feel what was already inside you. They held up the mirror so clearly that you could finally see yourself. This is a hard truth to accept, because it means that the specialness you attributed to them, the irreplaceability you felt, wasn't about their uniqueness. It was about the unique moment of awakening they catalyzed within you. And here's where it gets even more profound. Jung believed that we're drawn to people who carry the exact qualities we need to develop within ourselves. So if you felt deeply seen by this person, it's because you needed to learn to see yourself. If you felt deeply accepted by them, it's because you needed to learn to accept yourself. If you felt deeply loved by them, even if briefly or incompletely, it's because you needed to learn to love yourself. The illusion wasn't the connection. The connection was real. But the illusion was thinking that the connection could only exist with them, that you could only feel that alive, that awake, that whole with that one specific person. And the final awakening comes when you realize that what they gave you wasn't something they possessed. It was something they helped you remember about yourself. They were the catalyst, not the cure. They were the question, not the answer. They were the mirror, not the face you were meant to see forever. And this is where the transformation begins. When you stop waiting for them to come back. When you stop hoping they'll finally choose you. When you stop believing that your wholeness depends on their presence. Because the moment you realize that everything you felt with them is actually accessible within you, the entire story changes. The pain begins to serve a different purpose. Can you feel that shift happening inside you right now? Loving someone you couldn't have forced you into the darkness. Not the darkness of depression, though you may have experienced that too, but the darkness Jung spoke of, the shadow, all those parts of yourself you'd hidden away, denied, rejected, suppressed. That love, that impossible connection, it brought everything to the surface. Suddenly you were facing your unworthiness, your fear of abandonment, your belief that you're too much or not enough, your terror of being truly seen and still not chosen. All of it came flooding out, raw and undeniable. And maybe you tried to run from it. Maybe you tried to numb it, distract yourself from it, pretend it wasn't there. But empaths can't run from their shadows for long. The sensitivity that makes you feel love so deeply also makes you feel pain so completely. And this pain, this specific kind of heartbreak, it was relentless. It demanded that you look. It demanded that you feel. It demanded that you finally acknowledge all the ways you'd been abandoning yourself long before they did. Because here's what that love revealed. Every time they pulled away, every time they were inconsistent, every time they chose something or someone else over you, it triggered an old wound. A wound that existed long before you met them, Maybe it was a parent who couldn't show up for you emotionally. Maybe it was a childhood where you learned that love was conditional, that you had to perform, to be perfect, to hide your needs in order to be acceptable. Maybe it was a series of relationships where you gave everything and received crumbs in return. That person didn't create these wounds. They just reopened them. They showed you where you were still bleeding. And this is the part of the journey that most people want to skip. They want to jump straight to healing, straight to feeling better, straight to moving on. But Jung knew that real transformation requires descent. It requires going into the wound, not around it. It requires sitting with the parts of yourself that feel unlovable and asking why. Why do I believe I'm not worthy of the love I give? Why do I accept less than what my soul needs? Why do I wait for others to choose me instead of choosing myself first? These questions are painful. They're uncomfortable. They bring up shame and grief and rage. But they're also the doorway to freedom. That person you loved, they didn't just break your heart. They broke open your defenses. They shattered the false self you'd constructed to protect the wounded child inside. And now, in the aftermath, you have a choice. You can build those defenses back up, harder and higher than before. Or you can do the work, the shadow work, the deep, uncomfortable, transformative work of integrating what that love revealed about you. What are you choosing? Are you ready to go deeper? Something in you had to die. You've felt it, haven't you? That sense that you're not the same person you were before you loved them. You can't go back to who you were. You can't pretend you don't know what you know now. You can't unknow the depth of feeling you're capable of. You can't unfeel the pain that taught you how much you'd been numbing yourself to life. Carl Jung spoke often about death and rebirth as psychological processes, not just metaphors. And when an empath loves someone they can't have, they don't just experience heartbreak. They experience an ego death. The version of you that needed their validation to feel worthy, that part had to die. The version of you that believed you could love someone into choosing you, that part had to die. The version of you that put everyone else's needs above your own, hoping that self-sacrifice would finally make you deserving of love, that part had to die too. And these deaths, they weren't gentle. They were violent, disorienting, devastating. Because you identified with those patterns. You thought they were who you were. You built your entire life around being the person who gives, who understands, who stays, who loves unconditionally even when the conditions are destroying you. But that's not unconditional love. That's self-abandonment. And somewhere in the pain of losing someone you couldn't have, you started to realize the difference. You started to see that real love, the kind Jung wrote about, the kind that actually transforms. It includes loving yourself. Not after you've proven yourself worthy. Not after someone else validates you. But now, as you are, with all your flaws and wounds and complications. This is the death that needed to happen. The death of the belief that your value comes from outside yourself. And I know this death doesn't feel like awakening yet. It feels like loss. It feels like failure. It feels like you're standing in the ruins of everything you thought was true. But Jung understood that the psyche doesn't destroy randomly. It destroys strategically. It breaks down what no longer serves so that something more authentic can emerge. And right now, in this in-between space, you're being emptied out. Not to remain empty, but to make room for something real. The old you would have stayed in that situation, hoping, waiting, diminishing yourself piece by piece. The old you would have interpreted their unavailability as evidence of your inadequacy. The old you would have kept trying to earn love that was never yours to earn. But that version is dying. And it needs to, because the person you're becoming, the awakened empath, doesn't beg for scraps, doesn't wait for permission to matter, doesn't love at the expense of self. Can you feel that new self trying to emerge? Can you sense that there's something on the other side of this death? This is where everything shifts. This is where the pain stops being something that's happening to you and becomes something you're alchemizing. Jung believed in the wounded healer, the person who transforms their suffering into wisdom, their pain into power. And you're standing at that threshold right now. The question is whether you're ready to cross it. Whether you're ready to stop seeing yourself as a victim of impossible love and start seeing yourself as someone who was strong enough to survive it and wise enough to learn from it. Reclaiming your power doesn't mean pretending the love didn't matter. It means recognizing that you matter more. It means understanding that while they may have catalyzed your awakening, you're the one doing the work. You're the one facing the shadows. You're the one choosing every single day to keep going, even when it would be easier to collapse. And that's not weakness. That's the most profound strength there is. The strength to hold your own heart when no one else will. And here's where I want to offer you something very gently, because I know how tender this space is. If you're feeling right now like you're ready to go deeper, like you want a companion for this journey, something that can guide you through the next phase, I've created something with you in mind. It's a guide, a 30-day journey using Carl Jung's psychology to transform the pain of impossible love into self-knowledge and inner strength. It's called Your Pain Was Not in Vain, and I've left the link in the first pinned comment. It's there if you feel called to it. If you sense it might help you navigate what comes next. But whether you choose that or not, what matters is that you choose yourself. That you make the decision right here, right now, that you will no longer abandon yourself the way they abandoned you. That you will no longer wait for someone outside yourself to make you feel whole. Because that's what power looks like for an empath. It's not domination. It's not control. It's sovereignty. It's the quiet, unshakable knowing that you are enough, exactly as you are, and that your love is a gift, not a bargaining chip. This is the reclamation. Taking back all the energy you poured into them and redirecting it toward yourself. Taking back all the hope you invested in a future with them and investing it in your own becoming. Taking back all the worthiness you tried to earn through their approval and recognizing it was yours all along. And yes, this is hard. Yes, it feels like starting over, but it's not starting over. It's starting right. Starting from a foundation of self-love instead of self-abandonment. How does it feel to consider that possibility? That you could actually be your own source of love? Comment below if this is landing for you. Because what I'm about to share next is the most important part of this entire awakening. Here's the paradox that will free you. That person, the one you loved and couldn't have, they gave you the greatest gift and they didn't even know it. They didn't mean to. They probably don't even realize it happened. But by not choosing you, by remaining unavailable, by being unable to meet you in the way your soul needed, they forced you to find yourself. They forced you to stop looking for completion outside yourself and start building it from within. And that gift, that unintentional, painful, perfect gift, is worth more than any relationship could have ever given you. Because if they had chosen you, if they had been available, if the relationship had worked out the way you hoped, you might never have done this work. You might have continued to make them your center, your purpose, your reason for existing. You might have spent years, decades even, shaping yourself around their needs, their moods, their availability. You might have lost yourself completely in the process of loving them. And empaths do this. They disappear into relationships. They become so focused on understanding and supporting the other person that they forget to understand and support themselves. But they saved you from that fate by not giving you the chance. They saved you by leaving space, painful space, where you had no choice but to confront yourself, to ask the hard questions, to do the shadow work, to face the wounds, to reclaim your power. To remember who you were before you learned to abandon yourself for love. And now, standing here, you're becoming someone they never got to meet. Someone stronger, more whole, more awake. Someone who knows their worth not because someone else confirmed it, but because they did the work to build it from the inside out. Jung called this individuation the process of becoming who you truly are, separate from the collective, separate from others' expectations, separate from the roles you've been playing. And it's painful. It's one of the most painful processes a human can go through. But it's also the most liberating. Because on the other side of it, you're free. Free from the need for external validation. Free from the belief that someone else holds the key to your happiness. Free to love from a place of wholeness instead of lack. So when you think of them now, and I know you still do, try to shift the narrative. Not to make the pain go away, but to transform it. They weren't the love of your life. They were the catalyst for you becoming the love of your own life. They weren't the one who got away. They were the one who set you free. And that's not bitterness. That's not rationalization. That's truth. The deepest kind of truth. The kind that Jung spent his entire life trying to help people understand. Can you feel that shift beginning to happen inside you? So who are you now, on the other side of this? Or maybe you're not fully on the other side yet. Maybe you're somewhere in the middle, still feeling the ache, still having moments where you miss them so intensely it takes your breath away. That's okay. That's part of it. Awakening isn't a destination. It's a continuous unfolding. But even from where you are right now, you can sense that something has changed. You're not the same person who fell in love with someone unavailable. You're not the same person who believed that love required self-sacrifice. You're not the same person who waited and hoped and diminished yourself in the process. The awakened empath, the person you're becoming, loves differently. Not less deeply, but more wisely. They still feel everything, still connect profoundly, still give generously. But they don't give at their own expense anymore. They don't interpret someone's inability to love them as evidence of their unworthiness. They don't stay in situations that require them to shrink. And most importantly, they don't need someone else to make them feel whole. They know they already are. This is the final awakening. Not that you stop loving, not that you close your heart, not that you become hard or cynical or protected, but that you learn to love yourself with the same intensity you once reserved for others. That you learn to show up for yourself the way you showed up for them. That you learn to choose yourself first, not selfishly, but necessarily. Because you finally understand that you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't love others authentically if you're not loving yourself. And you can't be present for anyone else if you're abandoning yourself. And here's what happens when an empath reaches this level of awakening. They become magnetic in a completely different way. Not because they're trying to attract anyone, not because they're performing or proving or chasing, but because they're finally whole. And wholeness is the most attractive energy there is. It draws people in. But more importantly, it draws the right people in. People who can match them. People who are also doing their own work. People who understand that love is about two whole people choosing each other, not two half people trying to complete each other. Jung said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And you're doing it. Through the pain, through the loss, through the impossible love that broke you open. You're doing it. You're becoming. And that person you loved, they'll never know the role they played in your transformation. They'll never understand that by not choosing you, they gave you the greatest gift. The gift of choosing yourself. The gift of waking up. The gift of remembering that you were never broken. You were never too much. You were always enough. You were just loving someone who couldn't see it. And now you're learning to see it yourself. So here you are, at the end of this video, but at the beginning of something else. Something bigger. The rest of your life as an awakened empath who knows their worth, who honors their depth, who doesn't apologize for feeling everything so completely. And I want to acknowledge you for getting here. For watching this all the way through, for being brave enough to look at your pain and see it as something other than punishment, for being willing to consider that maybe, just maybe, everything happened exactly as it needed to. But I also want to be honest with you about something. This knowing, this awakening, it's just the beginning. The real work, the daily work of actually living as your authentic self, of making choices that honor your worth, of setting boundaries, of not falling back into old patterns. That work is ongoing. It requires support. It requires tools. It requires a roadmap for those moments when the old beliefs creep back in and you start to doubt yourself again. And this is why I created what I mentioned earlier. If you feel right now in this moment that you're ready to go deeper, that you want a structured guide to help you navigate these next 30 days with intention and clarity, I invite you to check out Your Pain Was Not in Vain, a Jungian guide to transforming the pain of impossible love into self-knowledge and inner strength. It's a 30-day journey through the exact concepts we've explored here, but with daily practices, reflection prompts, and shadow work exercises designed specifically for empaths healing from unavailable love. You'll find the link in the first pinned comment. It's there as a resource, as a companion, as something I created with deep care for anyone walking this path. But whether you choose that or not, please hear this. You are not alone. Your pain is not unique in the sense that many have felt it, but your pain is sacred. Your capacity to love so deeply, even when it hurts, is not a flaw. It's your medicine. It's what makes you you. And the world needs awakened empaths. It needs people who have done this work, who have transformed their wounds into wisdom, who can love powerfully without losing themselves. So I'm going to ask you to do something. Take a moment right now and comment below with one thing you're taking away from this video. One insight, one shift, one piece of recognition. Let's build a community here of people who understand this journey. And if this resonated with you, if you felt seen by this, please share it with someone who might need to hear it too. Subscribe to the channel so we can continue this conversation. And most of all, be gentle with yourself. You're not just healing, you're awakening. And that's the bravest thing a person can do. Thank you for being here. Thank you for trusting me with your time and your attention. And thank you for doing the work. Even when it's hard, you're exactly where you need to be.